All right, so we're going to dive into a case that starts right on the 50-yard line, but it ends up completely changing how we think about product safety. This is the story of Byrns versus Riddell, a case where a football helmet was literally put on trial.
It all boils down to just one play, one single moment in a high school football game that leads to this life-altering injury. And from there, a legal battle explodes that forces the courts to answer a really tough question. When is something we buy not just dangerous, but unreasonably dangerous? There's a big difference. So to really get this, we've got to go back to where it all started, right there, on the football field. Okay, so picture this. It's October 2nd, 1970. A high school player, Kevin Byrns, is right in the middle of one of those super chaotic onside kicks. He grabs the ball, he gets tackled, he's hit, and the outcome is just devastating. A severe brain injury. We're talking a swelling of the right temporal lobe. And pretty soon, all eyes, all the questions, they turn to one single piece of his equipment. The helmet. And that, of course, brings us from the field to the courtroom. This is where that helmet, the Riddell TK2, suddenly becomes the main character in this huge legal drama. So here's where the two sides really clash. On one side, you have the Byrns family. They're arguing the helmet was just plain defective. Their experts come in and say it could bottom out. That's a term meaning the padding just completely collapses and transfers all that force right to the skull. Not good. They even said it failed some industry safety tests. But Riddell's defense was strong. They said, hey, look at the game film. The hit was on the top of the helmet, which is actually its strongest point. And then they dropped a bombshell. They pointed out that the family's own experts never even bothered to test the top of the helmet. So the stage is set, right? It seems like this is a classic case for a jury to figure out. But then, in this totally unexpected twist, the jury, they never even get to make a decision.
Yeah, so to get what happens next, you got to understand this legal move called a directed verdict. It's basically when a judge steps in and says, you know what, one side just hasn't presented enough evidence to even have a real case here. And just like that, the judge can end the whole trial.
And, well, that's exactly what happened in this case. The judge takes a look at the game film and basically says, yep, Riddell's right. He rolled the film with so obvious, so clearly a top-of-helmet hit that letting the jury think otherwise would just be mere speculation. So, bang, directed verdict, case dismissed. Now, for the Byrns family, you'd think that would be it, game over. But it wasn't. They appealed, and that appeal forced the Arizona Supreme Court to tackle one of the biggest, most important questions in all of consumer law. And here's the thing, it's not enough for a product to just be dangerous. I mean, come on, a football helmet is used in a dangerous sport, right? That's kind of the point. The legal bar is way higher. The real question the court had to figure out was what makes a product unreasonably dangerous? So to get an answer, the court came up with something called the ordinary consumer standard. It's actually pretty simple when you break it down. Just think about it like this. Does this product have a danger that's way beyond what you, an average person, would expect when you buy it? Like, you expect a kitchen knife to be sharp, obviously, but you definitely don't expect it to just shatter while you're cutting a carrot. See the difference? That's what they were getting at.
And to figure that out, the court created this incredible 7-part test. And honestly, this is the real legacy of the case. A court now has to look at the whole picture. How useful is the thing? Are there safer ways to make it? What are the odds of someone getting hurt and how bad could it be? Is the danger super obvious? It all comes down to this big balancing act, you know? Can we get rid of the danger without making the product totally useless or crazy expensive?
So with this brand new, much clearer way of looking at things, the Arizona Supreme Court went back and took another look at that first judge's decision to just throw the case out. And whoa, did they have a different take. They looked at the exact same evidence, heard the same arguments, and they basically said, nope, the trial judge got this wrong. Suddenly, the case was back on. It was very, very much alive. There's this quote from their decision that really just nails the whole point of our justice system. The court wasn't saying the helmet was for sure defective. That's not what they were doing. They were just saying that the evidence, well, it was debatable. And when you have a situation where reasonable people can look at the same stuff and come to different conclusions, then that decision belongs to one group of people and one group only, the jury. So the Supreme Court's reasoning was like a direct takedown of the trial judge's ruling, point by point. First, they watched that same game film and said, you know what, this is messy, it's chaotic, this is inconclusive at best. Then they looked at the experts who couldn't agree,
They didn't see that as a problem. They saw it as the reason you need a jury. That's literally what a factual dispute is. And because of all that disagreement, they said the huge questions, was the helmet defective and did that defect cause the injury? That's a job for the jury, period.
Okay, so what happened in the end? And more importantly, why are we still talking about a case from the 1970s today?
Well, first, the direct result was that the case was sent back for a new trial. The Byrns family finally got the day in court they should have had from the start. But the bigger deal, the real game changer, was the legal precedent it set. This decision wasn't just about one family's case. It gave all consumers and their lawyers a powerful, clear, new tool to hold companies accountable for making safe products. At the end of the day, the whole legacy of this case really comes down to one number: 7. That's for the 7-factor test that judges and juries in Arizona still use to decide if a product's design is unreasonably dangerous. That is the lasting impact of Byrns versus Riddell. And that really brings us back to a huge question for all of us, right? This entire legal fight was about one football helmet, but it leaves us thinking about everything else we use every day. From the car you drive to the phone in your hand, how safe do we expect these things to be? And maybe more importantly, who should get the final say on whether they're safe enough?